In the stillness of the night, beneath the ancient and ever-watching stars, there is a whisper. It is not heard by the ear, but felt by the soul. It is the call of something forgotten. A path not walked by many, yet known to the wise, the seekers, and the forgotten masters of old. This call speaks of an ancient power, one so subtle and yet so profound that it can heal not only the body but the very essence of your being. This is the power of fasting. But this is not the fasting that you may think you know. It is not the hunger endured out of necessity or the fleeting desire to shed the weight of the physical. No, this is a deeper fasting, a fasting that goes beyond the flesh and enters the realm of the spirit. It is an ancient, sacred practice, one that whispers of transformation, of purification, and of a hidden secret, long buried, that awaits to be uncovered. What if I told you that there is a way to unlock a secret that has been passed down through the ages, a secret that the ancients knew? A secret that heals your body and purifies your soul, connecting you to the deepest currents of life and restoring you to your true, divine nature. This secret, once known by sages and mystics, is not just a practice, but a living force, a force that pulses through every cell, through every breath, and through every heartbeat. It is a force so powerful that when embraced, it can transform your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. But it is not a secret to be taken lightly. It is not a practice for the faint of heart, for it asks of you something that the world, in its endless rush, has forgotten to give: time, stillness, and the willingness to surrender. In the fast-paced world we inhabit today, we are taught to seek answers in the noise, in the constant motion, in the consumption of everything that comes our way. But the true answer, the answer that heals the body and purifies the soul, lies in the silence, in the stillness, and in the deep awareness that comes when we pause. When we stop seeking outside ourselves, and instead turn inward to the wisdom that resides deep within us, waiting to be remembered. And so we return to the forgotten path. A path where, by abstaining from the earthly cravings, we open the door to a greater understanding of the self, of the universe, and of the divine. It is a path that calls to you, in moments of quiet reflection, in dreams that stir the soul, in moments of deep yearning. This is not the kind of fasting that the world speaks of, a fasting for weight loss, for detoxification, for self-improvement. No, this is a fasting that transcends the physical, a fasting that reaches into the very core of your existence, a fasting that purifies the soul. It is the sacred art of fasting, an art known to the ancients, whose wisdom still flows through the rivers of time. In the ancient texts, fasting was often seen as a form of initiation, a trial that would strip away the layers of illusion, leaving only the truth of the self. It was said that fasting brings you closer to the divine, allowing you to hear the whispers of the soul, to receive the guidance of the unseen forces that govern our lives. And so, the question arises: what happens when you surrender to this ancient practice? What happens when you allow your body to enter the sacred fast, when you relinquish control over your cravings and desires? What happens when you trust in the wisdom of your body and listen to the subtle whispers of your soul? The answers, my friend, lie hidden in the silence. They are not words that can be spoken, but truths that must be experienced. And so, we embark on this journey together, to uncover the forbidden secret of fasting that heals your body and purifies your soul. But be warned, this journey will not be easy. It will challenge you. It will demand of you more than you think you can give. It will ask you to let go of the worldly distractions and embrace the silence, the stillness, and the unknown. It will ask you to face your deepest fears, your darkest thoughts, and your most hidden desires. But in the end, it will heal you. It will transform you, and it will purify your soul. When the winds of the earth begin to stir, they carry with them secrets older than the stones beneath our feet, older than the trees that stretch toward the heavens. These whispers, ever so faint, speak of an ancient understanding, a power that resides not in the fullness, but in the empty space between breaths, in the pause between thoughts. This is the power of fasting. It is said that the ancient sages, those who walked the earth long before the written word existed, knew this power intimately. They knew that in the act of fasting, the body is not merely deprived, but rather, it is prepared. It is prepared to receive what the senses cannot grasp, what the mind cannot fathom, a wisdom that flows not from the physical, but from the divine. This is a power that lies dormant within you. It waits for the moment when you, too, will listen to the whispers of the soul, calling you to unlock its mysteries. But what you may ask is this power. What is it that fasting offers? Is it just the healing of the body, the purification of the soul? Or is it something more, something deeper, something hidden from the eye? The answer, my friend, lies in the space of emptiness. We live in a world where the chase for more, for fulfillment, for satisfaction dominates our lives. We are told that to be full is to be whole, that to have more, to take in more, is the path to success, to happiness, to peace. Yet, the greatest wisdom of the ancients teaches us the opposite. It is not in the fullness that healing occurs, but in the emptiness. The empty cup, the empty vessel, the space that is left when we stop consuming. This is where the healing begins. Think of the great river that winds its way through the valleys, carving the land, shaping the earth. It is in its emptiness that it finds its strength. It is when the river allows itself to flow without obstruction, without the weight of the earth pulling it down, that it becomes a force of nature. And so it is with the human soul. When we fast, when we release the clutter of the world, when we stop filling ourselves with distractions, we open ourselves to the flow of divine energy, of healing, of truth. The ancient mystics spoke of this emptying process as a way to return to the 0 point, the state of pure potential. This is the moment before creation, the moment before the universe took shape. It is the moment in which all things are possible, and in this moment, the soul finds its purity. The act of fasting, then, is not merely an act of abstention. It is an act of creation, of creating space within the self for the divine to enter. But this space, this emptiness, is not always easy to accept. For in our modern world, we are taught to fill every moment, to be constantly busy, to consume endlessly. Yet the wisdom of the ancients tells us that in this ceaseless consumption, we lose our way. We lose touch with our true essence, our divine nature, and we become trapped in the cycles of desire and distraction. The body, too, has been taught to consume without restraint. From the moment we are born, we are conditioned to seek, to crave, to fill ourselves. The body, though powerful, is not meant to be a vessel of endless consumption. It is meant to be a vessel of experience, of transformation, of purification. When we fast, we honor the body's natural rhythms, allowing it to return to its state of balance, to its divine blueprint. It is said that the great alchemists of old understood this principle deeply. They knew that in order to transmute lead into gold, one must first separate the pure from the impure, the essential from the non-essential. So too, in fasting, we separate the distractions of the world from the essential truths of our being. We allow the impurities of the body to be released, and in doing so, we reveal the gold of our soul. This is not a process of deprivation. No, it is a process of revelation. It is the unveiling of what has always been there, hidden beneath the layers of excess, of noise, of distraction. When we fast, we return to ourselves, to the essence of who we truly are. We shed the layers of the world, and in the silence that remains, we find our connection to the divine. And so we ask again, what happens when you embrace the quiet power of fasting? What happens when you allow your body to empty itself? When you stop feeding the endless hunger that the world has taught you to nourish? The answer, as the ancients knew, lies in the space between breaths, in the silence of the soul, and in the purity of the self. This is the hidden secret, the forbidden knowledge that has been passed down through the ages. A knowledge that is waiting for you to reclaim it. The path is not one of ease, but it is a path that leads to healing, to purification, to transformation. It is a path that begins with the empty cup, the empty vessel, and it leads to the fullness of the soul. The call to fast is not one that comes from the mouth of man, but from the ancient depths of the soul. It is a call that resonates through the fabric of the universe, like a song sung by the wind, carried on the currents of time. This sacred practice, fasting, is not merely a physical act. It is a doorway, a portal that leads you to a world beyond the senses, beyond the limitations of the body, and into the vast, infinite expanse of the spirit. But what, you may ask, is this portal? Where does it lead? And how can something as simple as abstaining from food or drink be so transformative, so profound, that it heals not only the body, but the very essence of who we are? To understand this, we must first understand the nature of fasting itself. It is not simply the act of withholding nourishment from the body. It is the act of listening to the body, of respecting its natural rhythms, and of allowing it to rest. But more than that, it is the act of emptying the mind, of stilling the constant chatter of thoughts, of letting go of the distractions that bind us to the physical world. When we fast, we do not simply remove the foods we consume. We remove the mental clutter, the emotional baggage, the spiritual distractions that prevent us from seeing ourselves as we truly are. Fasting is a process of purification, of returning to our most primal, untainted state. It is a cleansing of the soul, a restoration of the body to its natural state of harmony and balance. It is said that fasting connects us to the divine, to the source of all life, to the eternal wellspring of wisdom and healing that flows through every living being. When we fast, we open ourselves to this divine flow. We remove the barriers that separate us from this sacred energy, and we allow ourselves to be replenished by it. This is why fasting is often described as a spiritual practice, as much as it is a physical one. The ancients knew this. The great mystics, the sages, the wise ones who walked the earth long before us, understood the power of fasting in ways that modern man has forgotten. To them, fasting was a sacred art, a way of aligning oneself with the cosmos, with the divine rhythms that govern all things. They knew that fasting was a key that unlocked the doors to inner peace, to health, to spiritual enlightenment. In ancient cultures, fasting was often seen as a rite of passage, an initiation into higher wisdom. It was a sacred journey, one that required discipline, strength, and dedication. But it was also a journey that offered profound rewards, a deeper understanding of oneself, a closer connection to the divine, and a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. But in our modern world, fasting is often misunderstood. It is seen as a temporary measure, a quick fix for weight loss, or as a mere act of deprivation. Yet, true fasting is far more than this. It is a sacred act of remembrance, a return to the heart of who we are. It is a practice that has the power to heal, to restore, and to purify not just the body, but the very soul. To understand the full power of fasting, we must look beyond its physical benefits. We must understand that fasting is a spiritual practice, a sacred offering to the divine, a way of aligning ourselves with the forces of nature, and a way of reconnecting to the eternal truths that lie within us all. As you embark on this journey, remember that fasting is not an end, but a beginning. It is the first step on a path that leads to healing, to transformation, and to spiritual enlightenment. It is a practice that will open the doors to a new way of being, a way that is in harmony with the rhythms of the universe, a way that honors the body, the mind, and the soul. In the next chapters, we will explore the history of fasting, the ancient rituals and practices that have been passed down through the ages, and the profound science behind the act of fasting. We will also uncover the hidden knowledge that has been guarded for centuries, knowledge that has the power to heal not just the body, but the very soul. But for now, let us take a moment to reflect on the sacred nature of this practice. Reflect on the ancient wisdom that calls to you. Reflect on the power of fasting to heal, to purify, and to transform. The path is before you, and the portal awaits. Will you step through? The practice of fasting is as old as civilization itself. Across cultures and epochs, from the mystics of Egypt to the sages of India, fasting has been regarded not only as a physical discipline, but as a spiritual one, a sacred art, passed down through the ages, laden with meaning and purpose. In every corner of the earth, fasting was revered as a practice that connected man to the divine, purified the body and soul, and unlocked the deepest mysteries of existence. Let us journey together through the pages of history, uncovering the wisdom of the ancients who knew what we have forgotten. That fasting is not simply the act of withholding food, but the art of aligning oneself with the rhythms of nature, the divine, and the eternal cycles of life. In ancient Egypt, fasting was deeply intertwined with spiritual and religious practices. The Egyptians, known for their profound understanding of the human body and soul, often engaged in fasting to purify the spirit and seek divine insight. It was said that the priests and priestesses of Egypt fasted before their sacred rituals, in order to attune their minds and hearts to the higher frequencies of spiritual awareness. The act of fasting was seen as a means to elevate the soul, to cleanse the body of impurities, and to prepare oneself for communion with the gods. The Egyptian pharaohs themselves, those god kings who ruled over the land of the Nile, were not exempt from these spiritual practices. It is said that they, too, fasted during times of great importance to seek guidance from the divine, to purify themselves, and to ensure the prosperity of their reign. The ancient Egyptians understood that fasting was a sacred act, one that could not only heal the body, but open the heart and mind to the deepest mysteries of existence. Far to the east, in India, fasting has been an integral part of spiritual life for millennia. The great sages and mystics of India, from the ancient rishis to the great yogis of the present day, have practiced fasting as a means of attaining enlightenment and communion with the divine. The concept of tapas, or inner fire, is central to Indian spiritual traditions, and fasting was seen as a way of stoking this inner fire, burning away the impurities of the mind, and making way for the divine light to shine through. In the Hindu tradition, fasting is often associated with the worship of deities and the observance of holy days. It is said that by fasting, a devotee can purify their mind, body, and soul, and draw closer to the divine presence of the gods. The act of fasting in India was not only seen as a means of purification, but also as a form of self-discipline, a way of training the mind to rise above the cravings and desires of the material world, and to align oneself with the higher, spiritual realm. Fasting was not only practiced in the East, but also in the ancient traditions of Greece and Rome. The Greek philosophers, known for their search for wisdom, often engaged in fasting as a means of attaining clarity of mind and insight into the nature of existence. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle all spoke of the importance of self-control and discipline, and fasting was seen as a way to cultivate these virtues. The act of fasting was a way to transcend the physical realm, to quiet the mind, and to attune oneself to the higher realms of thought and understanding. In Rome, fasting was often practiced by the Stoics, who believed that the mind should rule over the body. For the Stoics, fasting was a way to demonstrate mastery over one's desires, to cultivate inner strength, and to gain clarity in the face of life's challenges. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote extensively on the practice of fasting, advising his followers to abstain from excess in all things, including food, in order to strengthen the soul and attain peace of mind. In the Abrahamic faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, fasting has been an essential spiritual practice, deeply woven into the fabric of religious life. In the Hebrew Bible, fasting is frequently mentioned as a way to seek atonement, to express sorrow for sins, and to purify oneself before God. The most famous fast in the Jewish tradition is that of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when Jews fast for 25 hours in repentance and reflection. This fast is not merely about abstaining from food, but about turning inward, seeking spiritual purification, and reconnecting with the divine presence. In Christianity, fasting has long been associated with penance, self-discipline, and spiritual renewal. The 40-day fast of Lent, observed by millions of Christians around the world, commemorates the time that Jesus spent fasting in the wilderness, preparing for his ministry. This fast is not just about abstaining from food, but about fasting from all that hinders spiritual growth, distractions, desires, and earthly attachments. It is a time of reflection, of purification, and of drawing closer to God. In Islam, fasting is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and it is considered a sacred act of devotion and obedience. The month of Ramadan is observed by millions of Muslims worldwide, during which they fast from dawn until sunset, abstaining from food, drink, and other earthly desires. The fast is seen as a way of purifying the soul, of developing self-discipline, and of increasing one's devotion to God. Fasting during Ramadan is not merely about abstaining from food, but about cleansing the heart, mind, and soul, and drawing nearer to Allah. Across all these cultures, fasting was not merely a physical act, but a spiritual journey, a rite of passage, a means of purification, and a way of connecting with the divine. It was a sacred practice that transcended time, place, and culture, uniting humanity in its search for meaning, for healing, and for spiritual enlightenment. But why has this ancient practice, this sacred art, become so misunderstood in our modern age? Why has it been reduced to a mere tool for weight loss, a temporary fix for the body rather than the profound and transformative act it once was? The answer lies in the disconnect that we have experienced from the wisdom of our ancestors, the wisdom that lies deep within the heart of fasting. In our fast-paced, material-driven world, we have forgotten the true meaning of fasting. We have forgotten that it is not just about abstaining from food, but about abstaining from the distractions that keep us from our true selves. We have forgotten that fasting is a return to the sacred, a journey back to the divine, and a path that leads to healing, to purification, and to spiritual transformation. But the ancient wisdom is still there, waiting for us to reclaim it, to step back onto the path that our ancestors walked before us. And in doing so, we can rediscover the true power of fasting, a power that heals, a power that purifies, and a power that can transform our lives in ways we cannot yet imagine. Throughout the ages, the true nature of fasting has remained veiled, hidden beneath layers of tradition, ritual, and misunderstood teachings. It is a secret not easily comprehended by those who seek only the material, the obvious, and the surface-level truths. The knowledge of fasting's power goes far deeper than simply abstaining from food or drink. It taps into the very fabric of existence, a sacred energy that nourishes not only the body, but also the spirit. To the uninitiated, fasting may appear as a simple, even primitive practice, a way to cleanse the body or reduce weight, an ancient form of detox. But for those who have walked the spiritual path, who have ventured beyond the physical and into the realm of the soul, fasting is understood to be far more than this. It is a hidden key, one that unlocks the door to a deeper connection with the divine, with the universe, and with the innermost self. In the sacred teachings of the ancients, fasting is often associated with the concept of surrender. But surrender in this context is not a passive, fearful giving up. It is an active, conscious release of the ego, of the desires and distractions that separate us from the divine. When we fast, we let go of the superficial cravings that bind us to the material world. We stop feeding the physical body with what it desires, and in doing so, we open ourselves to the spiritual nourishment that the world cannot provide. This idea of surrender is not foreign to the teachings of the great mystics. It is present in the writings of the Sufis, who spoke of fasting as a means to purify the heart and soul, a way to rid oneself of the attachment to worldly desires and ego. For the Sufis, fasting was seen as a direct path to the divine. It was an offering of the self, a selfless act of devotion that allowed the soul to rise above the lower impulses of the body and to connect with the higher, spiritual realm. In the Christian tradition, fasting was seen as a form of spiritual warfare, a way to conquer the desires of the flesh and to align oneself with the will of God. It was a way to purify the soul and to create space for God's presence in one's life. This was especially emphasized during the season of Lent, when the faithful would fast as a means of repentance and renewal. But what, you might ask, is it that fasting allows us to surrender to? What is it that fasting connects us to on a deeper level? The answer lies in the energy that surrounds and permeates all life. This energy, this divine force, is not something external. It is within us. It is the life force, the ki, the prana, the vital energy that flows through every living being, from the trees to the stars, from the animals to the oceans. It is the energy of creation itself, and fasting in its most sacred form allows us to connect to this energy in its purest, most untainted form. When we fast, we stop consuming the physical, the material, and we make ourselves receptive to the spiritual, the eternal. In that space of emptiness, of quiet surrender, we become like a vessel, open and ready to receive the divine current that flows through all things. We stop filling ourselves with distractions, and instead, we open ourselves to the flow of life. In the esoteric traditions of the ancient world, fasting was seen as a form of alchemy, a process of transformation, both of the body and of the soul. The alchemists believed that through fasting, one could purify the base metals of the soul, the desires, the fears, the attachments, and transmute them into gold, into spiritual wisdom and understanding. This process, they believed, was a form of inner alchemy, one that required patience, discipline, and surrender. Fasting was also understood to bring about a deep cleansing of the body. The ancient wisdom spoke of the body as a sacred temple, a vessel that houses the soul. Just as a temple must be kept pure and clean in order to house the divine, so too must the body be purified in order to allow the soul to thrive. In fasting, the body is given the time and space to release the toxins, the impurities, and the blockages that hinder the flow of energy. This purification is not just physical, but spiritual as well. By clearing the body, we also clear the mind, and by clearing the mind, we open the path to spiritual awakening. In the mystic traditions, fasting was also seen as a way to detoxify the soul. Just as the body accumulates physical waste, the soul accumulates spiritual waste, negative thoughts, harmful emotions, attachments, and fears. These blockages prevent the soul from experiencing its true, divine nature. Fasting, in its most sacred form, acts as a cleansing fire, burning away the impurities of the soul and allowing the divine light to shine through. In the ancient mystery schools of Egypt, Greece, and Rome, fasting was a part of the initiation process. It was seen as a rite of passage, a way for the seeker to prepare themselves for the deeper knowledge and wisdom that would be revealed to them. The act of fasting was a form of testing one's resolve, testing one's ability to rise above the distractions of the world, and testing one's commitment to the spiritual path. Only those who could endure the discipline of fasting were deemed worthy to receive the hidden knowledge of the universe. The great alchemist Paracelsus, who lived in the 16th century, understood fasting as a way to rejuvenate the body, to restore it to its natural state of balance and vitality. He believed that fasting was a natural remedy for many ailments, not just of the body, but also of the mind and soul. Fasting, he said, allowed the body to reset, to cleanse itself, and to return to its original state of health and harmony. But fasting, in its most profound sense, is not simply a tool for healing or purification. It is a path to self-discovery. In the silence that fasting brings, the seeker is able to hear the deeper truths of their own soul. They are able to hear the whisper of their divine nature, to feel the presence of the divine within them, and to realize the interconnectedness of all life. Fasting, in this way, becomes a form of meditation, a way to silence the external noise and to tune in to the inner world, to the soul's deep, eternal wisdom. It is through fasting that we awaken to the truth of our own existence, to the truth of our connection to the divine, and to the truth of the sacredness of all life. When the body ceases its endless consumption, when the mind quiets its constant chatter, and when the soul surrenders to the process of fasting, something profound happens. It is as if the body and soul become attuned to a higher frequency, a frequency that vibrates at the very core of life itself. This attunement, this resonance, is what allows fasting to heal, to purify, and to transform. In this chapter we will explore the dual nature of fasting's power, its scientific foundation and its spiritual depth. Both perspectives, while seemingly distinct, are intricately connected. For the true wisdom of fasting lies not in one or the other, but in the harmonious marriage of the material and the spiritual, of the physical and the metaphysical. Together they form a whole, a system that works in unison to restore health, clarity, and balance. A pathway to physical healing at its most basic level. Fasting is the voluntary abstention from food or drink for a period of time. While it may seem like a simple act, the effects it has on the body are profound and far-reaching. When we fast, the body undergoes a series of intricate processes that work to repair, rejuvenate, and cleanse every cell. One of the most well-known scientific benefits of fasting is its ability to trigger a process known as autophagy. Autophagy is the body's natural way of cleaning out damaged cells, removing toxins, and recycling cellular components that are no longer functioning optimally. It is the body's internal mechanism for renewal, a process that allows the body to repair itself from within. Autophagy has been shown to improve cellular health, reduce inflammation, and boost longevity, making it a key player in the healing process. Moreover, fasting also has profound effects on the body's metabolic processes. When we stop eating, the body shifts from using glucose as its primary source of energy to burning fat for fuel. This transition is known as ketosis. In this state, the body not only burns stored fat but also produces ketones, molecules that serve as an alternative energy source for the brain. Ketones have been shown to have neuroprotective properties, improving brain function, mental clarity, and focus. In essence, fasting allows the body to tap into its deep reserves, rejuvenating both the body and mind. But the benefits of fasting go beyond the physical. Research has shown that fasting can improve insulin sensitivity, reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, and promote healthy aging. By giving the digestive system a break, fasting allows the body to focus on internal repair and detoxification. It reduces the burden on organs like the liver and kidneys, which are responsible for filtering out waste and toxins. And by lowering levels of oxidative stress and inflammation, fasting can protect the body from chronic diseases such as diabetes, cancer, and neurodegenerative conditions. A pathway to soul purification. While the scientific benefits of fasting are well documented, the spiritual power of fasting is far more elusive yet no less profound. To understand the spiritual significance of fasting, we must move beyond the physical and enter the realm of the soul. Fasting, at its core, is an act of self-discipline and surrender. It is a practice that forces us to confront our attachments, our desires, and the false identities we have created in the material world. When we fast, we let go of our need to constantly consume, to always be in motion, to fill the emptiness with distractions. In this state of emptying, we create space. Space to connect with our true essence, with the divine presence that resides within us all. It is in this space of stillness and surrender that the soul can begin its work of purification. The spiritual fasting practiced by the ancients was not simply about abstaining from food. It was about abstaining from all the distractions of the world that separate us from our divine nature. The great mystics and spiritual leaders of old understood that fasting was a tool for inner transformation. Through fasting, they could silence the ego, the false self, and attune themselves to the divine. It was in this silence that they could hear the voice of the soul, the voice of truth, and the voice of God. In the Sufi tradition, fasting is seen as a way of purification, a way to clear the heart of the impurities that prevent it from experiencing the divine. The Sufis speak of fasting as a means of detaching the soul from the material world and its endless cravings. By fasting, the Sufi initiates cleans their hearts, making them more receptive to the presence of God. It is a means of transcending the limitations of the body and attuning oneself to the infinite nature of the soul. Similarly, in the Christian tradition, fasting is a way of aligning oneself with the will of God. It is an act of self-denial, a way of humbling the body and mind in order to open the heart to divine grace. Jesus, in his 40-day fast in the wilderness, showed that fasting was not simply about denying the body, but about submitting to the divine will and purifying the soul. Fasting, then, is not just a means of physical healing, it is a means of spiritual elevation. It is a way of purifying the soul, of removing the blockages that prevent us from seeing the divine light within us. It is an act of cleansing the body of toxins and cleansing the soul of attachments, fears, and desires. The harmonious union of science and spirit, it is in the union of these two realms, the scientific and the spiritual, that fasting reveals its true power. On the physical level, fasting allows the body to heal, to reset, and to restore balance. But on the spiritual level, fasting allows the soul to heal, to transcend, and to reconnect with the divine. It is this union that makes fasting such a profound and transformative practice. In the physical realm, fasting brings healing through processes like autophagy, ketosis, and detoxification. But on the spiritual level, fasting brings healing through purification, inner peace, and divine connection. Fasting allows us to shed the layers of the ego, to peel away the false identities we have created, and to rediscover the truth of who we are. Divine beings connected to the eternal, the infinite, the divine source of all life. It is this dual nature of fasting, its scientific benefits and its spiritual depth, that makes it such a powerful tool for healing and transformation. And it is through fasting, in both its material and metaphysical forms, that we can begin to heal not only the body, but the soul as well. In the sacred silence of fasting, in the stillness of the body and the mind, there emerges a profound truth. Fasting is not just a ritual performed in solitude, nor is it merely a spiritual exercise isolated from the world. It is a transformative practice that carries with it real-world consequences. Fasting, in its deepest essence, is not just about purifying the body or the soul for the duration of the fast, but about creating a lasting shift, a transformation that ripples through every aspect of our lives. It affects how we relate to food, to our emotions, and ultimately, to the world around us. When you begin the journey of fasting, it is not only your body that changes. Your relationships with the world, with your environment, your mind, your community, and even your inner thoughts, shift in ways that you cannot predict. This shift, while subtle at first, deepens over time, creating a new way of seeing the world, a new way of being in the world, a journey of reclamation. The immediate effects of fasting are often felt physically. The body begins to cleanse itself, releasing accumulated toxins and waste that have built up over years of poor diet, environmental exposure, and stress. This cleansing process can manifest in several ways: increased energy, clearer skin, improved digestion, and better sleep. The body, in essence, begins to reclaim its natural state of health, returning to the balance that was once so easily maintained in the days before the world became a constant source of consumption. One of the most profound real-life implications of fasting is the restoration of hormonal balance. In our modern, fast-paced lives, stress and poor diet disrupt our natural hormonal rhythms. Fasting, however, offers the body a chance to reset these rhythms, improving insulin sensitivity, regulating appetite, and balancing cortisol levels. For many, this marks the first step toward a more stable, healthy body. one that no longer reacts chaotically to the demands of modern life. Fasting also has profound implications for the immune system. By giving the body time to rest and repair, fasting enhances the body's ability to fight off illness and disease. In fact, studies have shown that fasting can stimulate the production of new white blood cells, strengthening the immune system and making it more resilient to infections. In a world where autoimmune diseases and chronic illnesses are on the rise, fasting offers a natural, holistic remedy to support the body's healing processes. Beyond the physical benefits, fasting has a transformative effect on mental clarity and focus. The mental fog that often accompanies a life of constant consumption, whether it's food, media, or distractions, begins to lift. With this new clarity comes a renewed sense of purpose. Many who fast report feeling more attuned to their inner selves, more connected to their purpose, and more in control of their lives. This clarity opens the door to self-awareness, allowing one to examine patterns of thought, behavior, and habit that may have once seemed hidden or unconscious. But the true power of fasting is not merely in these immediate health benefits. The real-life implications of fasting go far beyond the physical body and mind. Fasting is a gateway to personal transformation, one that touches every aspect of your life. A new relationship with desire. When we fast, we face the most primal and powerful of our desires, the desire to eat. At first, this desire can feel overwhelming, an incessant pull that dominates the mind. But as the fast continues, something remarkable happens. We begin to understand the true nature of our cravings. What were once simple physical desires now reveal themselves as something more profound. A manifestation of the mind's attachment to the material world, its constant search for pleasure, comfort, and distraction. Fasting brings awareness to these desires. It forces us to confront them head-on, to see them for what they are, fleeting, momentary, and often rooted in fear, loneliness, or unfulfilled need. In the silence of fasting, we begin to realize that our cravings are not inherently bad, but are simply a reflection of our emotional states and unconscious habits. By abstaining from food, we create space to observe these desires without being controlled by them. In this way, fasting becomes a form of mental training, a way to break the cycle of mindless consumption, of emotional eating, and of the endless chase for satisfaction outside of ourselves. As we let go of the physical need to consume, we develop the strength to overcome the deeper cravings of the mind. The desire for constant entertainment, for validation, for distraction. Through fasting, we begin to see that true satisfaction does not come from external sources, but from within. The mind, once freed from the grip of constant desire, is able to find contentment in the present moment. We begin to cultivate a new kind of relationship with ourselves, one rooted in mindfulness, self-control, and inner peace, a reconnection to divine purpose on a deeper level. The real-life implications of fasting are profoundly spiritual. In our fast-paced, modern world, it is easy to forget that we are spiritual beings living in a physical body. We become so focused on the material world, on our careers, our possessions, our relationships, that we lose sight of the soul's true purpose. Fasting, however, offers a powerful way to reconnect with the soul. When we strip away the distractions of the world, when we silence the constant noise of modern life, we make space for the voice of the soul to be heard. In this space, we can hear our true calling, the desires, the dreams, and the passions that are aligned with our higher purpose. The act of fasting is deeply symbolic. It is the act of emptying oneself, of releasing attachments, of surrendering the ego to the greater will of the divine. As we fast, we allow ourselves to be guided by something greater than ourselves, something that transcends the physical and connects us to the divine wisdom that flows through all of creation. For many, fasting is a way to cultivate a deeper connection to God, to the divine, or to the universe. It is a practice that calls forth humility, as we are reminded of our smallness in the grand scheme of things, and our deep interconnection with all life. In this humility, we find grace, a grace that purifies the soul, that allows us to step into our divine nature, and that restores our sense of purpose. This reconnection to the divine is not just an abstract concept, it has real-world implications. When we are in tune with our soul's purpose, we begin to make choices that are aligned with our true self. We begin to act with more clarity, more compassion, and more integrity. Our actions become infused with a deeper sense of meaning, and our relationships with others are transformed by the love and understanding that come from this divine connection. Healing beyond the self. As the benefits of fasting ripple through the individual, they begin to extend beyond the self. When you fast and heal, you create a space for those around you to do the same. The clarity, peace, and strength that you cultivate within yourself become a source of inspiration and healing for others. In this way, fasting not only transforms the individual, but the community and the world at large. In fasting, we remember that we are all interconnected, all part of the same web of life. When we heal ourselves, we heal the world. This is the true, real, life implication of fasting. It is a practice that not only purifies the body and soul, but brings us back into harmony with the greater flow of existence. Fasting, as a spiritual and physical discipline, has long been practiced as a sacred rite, a ritual of purification, of alignment with the divine, and of transcendence over the material world. Across cultures and civilizations, fasting was not seen as a mere act of self-denial, but as an initiation, a transformative process that allowed the individual to connect more deeply with the sacred, to shed the illusions of the ego, and to approach the divine with reverence and humility. In ancient times, fasting was regarded as one of the most powerful spiritual tools available to the initiate. It was a practice that carried with it both spiritual and physical implications, and those who embarked upon it did so with a deep sense of respect, understanding, and reverence for the tradition. Fasting was seen as a way of aligning oneself with the cosmos, with the rhythms of the earth, and with the flow of divine energy. It was a way of purifying both body and soul, preparing oneself to receive the sacred wisdom that the gods and the universe had to offer. Let us now journey through the ancient rituals of fasting, examining the practices of different cultures and traditions that have preserved this sacred art throughout the ages. Purification and connection to the divine. In the land of Egypt, the practice of fasting was deeply entwined with the spiritual and religious life of the people. The ancient Egyptians believed that fasting was a means of connecting with the divine, of purifying the body and soul, and of attuning oneself to the rhythms of the universe. It was an offering to the gods, a way of showing devotion, humility, and respect for the divine forces that governed the world. The priests and priestesses of Egypt were often the ones who engaged in fasting as part of their spiritual practices. They would fast before important rituals and ceremonies, purifying themselves both physically and spiritually in order to commune with the gods. The Egyptians believed that fasting helped to align the individual with the cosmic order, or mat, the divine law that governed the universe. By fasting, they believed they could restore balance to their lives, reconnect with the divine, and gain the wisdom and guidance they sought. The Festival of Osiris, one of the most important religious events in ancient Egypt, was a time when fasting played a central role. During this festival, which celebrated the resurrection and rebirth of the god Osiris, the people would fast in order to cleanse themselves of impurities and to honor the god of the afterlife. This was seen as a time of spiritual renewal, of returning to the divine source, and of receiving the blessings of Osiris for the year to come. Fasting as a path to enlightenment. In India, fasting has been practiced for thousands of years, and it holds a central place in the spiritual traditions of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. The ancient rishis and sages of India understood fasting to be a tool for spiritual purification, for transcending the physical body, and for awakening to the deeper truths of existence. For the Hindu mystics, fasting was often linked to the practice of tapas, or inner fire. Tapas refers to the self-discipline, austerity, and purification that leads to spiritual enlightenment. The act of fasting, they believed, stoked the inner fire, burning away the impurities of the mind and soul, and allowing the individual to reach a state of higher consciousness. Fasting was also seen as a way of detaching the mind from the physical world, and as a means of transcending the desires and attachments that bind the soul to the material realm. In the Jain tradition, fasting is a central practice that is closely tied to the philosophy of non-violence, or ahimsa. Jains believe that fasting purifies the soul, removes karma, and brings the individual closer to liberation. Paryushana, an important Jain festival, involves fasting as a way of cleansing the body and soul, and as a means of making amends for past wrongs. The act of fasting during this period is seen as a form of spiritual renewal, of returning to the state of purity and non-attachment that is the ultimate goal of Jainism. In Buddhism, fasting is closely tied to the practice of mindfulness and self-control. The Buddha himself is said to have fasted during his quest for enlightenment, seeking to find the middle path between indulgence and asceticism. Fasting in Buddhism is not about deprivation, but about cultivating awareness, discipline, and detachment. It is about training the mind to rise above the cravings and desires of the body and to see the impermanence of all things. By fasting, the Buddhist practitioner aligns the body and mind with the teachings of the Buddha, purifying the soul and moving closer to nirvana. Fasting as a discipline for the mind. In ancient Greece, fasting was practiced by philosophers, mystics, and athletes alike. The Greek philosopher Pythagoras is said to have recommended fasting as a way to purify the body and mind. For Pythagoras, fasting was a means of cultivating mental clarity and spiritual insight, allowing the practitioner to transcend the distractions of the physical world and focus on the pursuit of wisdom. Fasting was also a central practice for the Stoics, the Greek school of philosophy that taught the cultivation of virtue and the mastery of one's desires. The Stoics, including Seneca and Epictetus, believed that fasting helped to strengthen the mind, improve self-control, and free the individual from the tyranny of bodily desires. For the Stoics, fasting was not about depriving oneself of nourishment, but about practicing self-mastery and inner strength. In ancient Rome, fasting was used both as a means of spiritual purification and as a tool for physical and mental discipline. Roman philosophers and statesmen, including Cicero and Plutarch, wrote about the benefits of fasting for cultivating clarity of thought, strengthening the will, and achieving mental and physical health. The Roman practice of fasting was closely tied to the idea of fortitude, the strength to endure hardship and remain virtuous in the face of temptation. Fasting as a sacred act of devotion. In the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, fasting is a central practice that has been observed for millennia. In each of these traditions, fasting is seen as a way to purify the soul, seek divine forgiveness, and strengthen the relationship with God. In Judaism, fasting is an integral part of the spiritual life, particularly on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. This sacred day involves a complete fast, during which Jews abstain from food, drink, and other physical comforts in order to atone for their sins and seek forgiveness from God. Fasting on Yom Kippur is a way of purifying the soul, of showing humility before God, and of seeking spiritual renewal. In Christianity, fasting has been a central practice since the time of Jesus Christ, who fasted for 40 days and nights in the wilderness before beginning his ministry. Christians observe Lent, a period of fasting and penance, to commemorate this time of spiritual purification. The fast is not only about abstaining from food but about repentance, humility, and self-reflection. Through fasting, Christians seek to draw closer to God and to experience spiritual renewal. In Islam, fasting during the holy month of Ramadan is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and it is seen as a time for spiritual cleansing, self-discipline, and devotion to Allah. Muslims fast from dawn to sunset, abstaining from food, drink, and other worldly pleasures. The fast is a way of purifying the soul, strengthening the relationship with Allah, and remembering those who are less fortunate. Fasting, in its deepest form, is not merely an act of abstaining from food or drink, nor is it a mere physical discipline. It is a sacred rite, a metaphysical journey, one that resonates through the very fabric of the universe. In every culture, in every tradition, fasting carries with it profound symbolism, transforming it from a mere act of denial into a universal metaphor for spiritual transformation, purification, and rebirth. To truly understand fasting, we must understand the symbols and metaphors that it carries with it, the hidden meanings, the deeper layers that speak to the soul. These symbols are not merely the product of human imagination, but of an ancient, divine understanding of the process of transformation. They speak of the journey of the self, the shedding of old skin, the release of past burdens, and the emergence into a new life. Fasting is not simply an end in itself, but a process of becoming, a journey from darkness into light, from illusion into truth, from suffering into healing. The sacred space within at its core, fasting symbolizes emptiness, the empty cup, the empty vessel, the empty body. But this emptiness is not a void, it is not a place of nothingness, it is a space of profound potential, a space waiting to be filled with divine wisdom, spiritual insight, and the purest energy of life itself. In the silence of fasting, in the surrender of the physical and mental distractions, there is a space that is created, a sacred space where the soul can expand, where it can connect to the divine, and where it can remember its true nature. In the ancient traditions, the empty cup was often seen as the symbol of the soul. Just as the cup must first be emptied before it can be filled with the sacred nectar, so too must the soul be emptied of worldly desires and attachments in order to receive the divine wisdom and spiritual guidance it longs for. Fasting, in this sense, is the act of creating space within oneself, a space that allows the light of the divine to enter and illuminate the heart. This symbolism of emptiness is not limited to the physical body. It extends to the mind and spirit as well. By fasting, we detach ourselves from the clutter of thoughts, emotions, and desires that fill our minds, and we allow ourselves to enter into a state of pure presence. This emptying of the self is not an act of loss, but one of divine receptivity, an act of opening oneself to the fullness of life, to the abundance of the universe, and to the wisdom of the soul. The phoenix rising from the ashes. Fasting, in many ways, symbolizes the cycle of death and rebirth. The very act of fasting is akin to the death of the ego, the temporary surrender of the self, the loss of identity, the release of attachment to the material world. It is the shedding of the old skin, the dismantling of the false self, and the surrendering of all that no longer serves us. But in this death, there is also rebirth. Just as the phoenix rises from the ashes, so too does the soul rise from the darkness of fasting, renewed, purified, and transformed. Fasting symbolizes the letting go of the old, the purging of impurities, and the emergence of the new. It is a process of spiritual alchemy, where the lead of the soul is transmuted into the gold of enlightenment, wisdom, and divine connection. In many spiritual traditions, fasting is seen as a rite of passage, a journey through the wilderness of the self. It is a journey that takes the initiate through a process of struggle, suffering, and purification, before emerging into a state of spiritual enlightenment and renewal. The metaphor of death and rebirth speaks to this process, a process of transformation that requires courage, commitment, and surrender. It is a process that leads to the awakening of the soul, to the remembrance of its divine nature, and to its ultimate reunion with the source of all creation. Illuminating the darkness within. In the spiritual tradition of fasting, there is also the powerful metaphor of light. As we fast, we enter into the darkness of the body's hunger, the darkness of the mind's cravings, and the darkness of the ego's attachment to the material world. But in this darkness, there is also a hidden light, a light that becomes visible when we release our attachment to the external, to the distractions, and to the illusions of the world. This light is the divine light that resides within each of us. It is the light of consciousness, of awareness, and of spiritual insight. It is the light of truth, the light that reveals the path to healing, to peace, and to spiritual enlightenment. In the act of fasting, we strip away the layers of ego, of fear, and of illusion, and we allow this inner light to shine through. This light is not external. It is not something we acquire. It is already within us, waiting to be revealed, waiting for us to reconnect with it. In many spiritual traditions, fasting is seen as a way to awaken the inner light, the light of the soul, the light of the divine spark that resides in all living beings. It is said that when we fast, we clear the way for this light to illuminate our hearts, to guide our actions, and to inspire us to live in accordance with our highest spiritual ideals. Fasting, in this sense, is not about darkness, but about bringing the light of the soul to the forefront of our consciousness. From base to divine, fasting also symbolizes transformation, a profound shift from the base, material existence to the divine, spiritual state of being. In many ancient traditions, the body was seen as a temple, a sacred vessel that housed the soul. But this temple, over time, became tainted by desires, attachments, and the distractions of the world. Fasting, therefore, was seen as a means of cleansing and purifying the temple, of returning it to its original, divine state. This transformation is not just physical, it is spiritual, mental, and emotional as well. Fasting is a process of purification, a process that strips away the layers of conditioning, false beliefs, and egoic desires that cloud the soul's true nature. It is the alchemy of the soul, where the base elements of the self, the fears, the doubts, the attachments, are transmuted into the pure gold of spiritual awakening and divine connection. The returning to source. Finally, fasting is a powerful symbol of renewal. In the act of fasting, we return to the source of life, the source of all nourishment, of all creation. Just as the earth undergoes cycles of death and renewal, so too does the soul undergo cycles of spiritual renewal. Fasting is the act of returning to the source, to the divine wellspring from which all life flows. In this return, we find strength, clarity, and purpose. We reconnect with the divine flow of energy that sustains us, and we remember our true nature as divine beings. The path of fasting is not an easy one. It is not a journey of mere deprivation or self-imposed suffering. It is a sacred journey, a journey that leads the soul through darkness, through uncertainty, and through the very depths of the self. But it is also a journey that, when embraced with reverence and patience, leads to light, a light that reveals the truth of who you are, the divine spark that resides within, and the sacred connection to the greater flow of existence. To embark on the journey of fasting is to step into the unknown. It is to walk through the veil of your own illusions, the walls of your fears, and the desires that have bound you to the material world. It is a journey of purification, of shedding the old skin and becoming something new. Fasting, in this sense, is not just an external practice, but an internal revolution, a revolution of the soul, the mind, and the heart. As you begin this journey, the first steps may feel uncertain, even uncomfortable. The body will hunger. The mind will resist. The ego will rebel, pleading for the comforts it has always known. But in these moments of struggle, there is also the opportunity for transformation. The struggle itself becomes the crucible, the fire in which the impurities of the soul are burned away. It is the moment when the old self is confronted and, if the soul is willing, transformed. Confronting the self fasting is a confrontation with the self. It is the act of looking deeply into the mirror of your own soul, of examining the patterns, desires, and attachments that have shaped your life. At first, this confrontation can be uncomfortable. The body craves, the mind distracts, and the emotions flare up, as the fasting process brings everything that has been buried to the surface. But this discomfort is not to be feared. It is in these moments that the soul is given the opportunity to purify. The cravings of the body are not just for food, they are for comfort, for familiarity, and for security. The mind seeks distractions, not because it truly desires them, but because it fears the emptiness that comes with stillness. And the emotions, those turbulent waves of fear, anger, sadness, and longing, rise up because fasting strips away the layers of protection we have built around ourselves. But in this struggle, there is also great healing. Fasting forces us to face our shadows, to confront the things we have hidden from ourselves. It brings to light the fears, insecurities, and desires that we have suppressed, and it gives us the opportunity to release them. The physical hunger becomes a metaphor for the soul's deeper hunger, a hunger for truth, for freedom, and for connection. As you continue on this journey, the struggle gives way to clarity. The layers of distraction and illusion begin to fall away, and you begin to experience a deeper awareness, an awareness of your own divinity, of your own innate connection to the universe. In this moment of realization, the transformation begins. You are no longer defined by your body, your thoughts, or your emotions. You are something far greater, a divine being, connected to all that is, and capable of tapping into the infinite wisdom and energy that flows through the cosmos. Letting go of the ego at a certain point in the fasting journey, the soul reaches a threshold, a point where the struggle between the ego and the divine self becomes too intense to bear. The ego, in all its attachments, desires, and fears, begins to break down. The grip that the body, the mind, and the emotions have on you loosens, and you enter a state of surrender. This surrender is not weakness. It is the letting go of the false self, the egoic identity that has defined who you are for so long. It is the release of control, of the need to force things to happen, and the acceptance of the present moment as it is. In this surrender, there is profound peace. A peace that arises from the realization that you are not in control of everything, that you are part of a greater plan, a greater unfolding. When you surrender to the process of fasting, you let go of the need to manipulate, to demand, to fix. You allow the body to heal itself, the mind to quiet itself, and the soul to reconnect with the divine source. In this moment of surrender, the divine wisdom that has been waiting within you is able to rise to the surface. You realize that fasting is not something that happens to you, but something that happens through you, a process of alignment with the deeper forces of the universe. Seeing the truth of who you are as the days of fasting pass, the inner transformation intensifies. The fog of distraction begins to lift, and the light of truth begins to shine through. You begin to see the world, not through the lens of the ego, but through the eyes of the soul. You begin to understand that you are not your body, You are not your thoughts, and you are not your emotions. You are the observer, the witness, the eternal consciousness that lies beyond all these fleeting forms. In this awakening, you see the interconnectedness of all things. You realize that the divine spark within you is the same divine spark that resides in all living beings. You recognize that you are part of a greater cosmic dance, one that is guided by love, by wisdom, and by the energy of creation itself. This realization is not something that can be learned with the mind. It is something that is felt with the heart and experienced by the soul. As you awaken to this truth, the transformation becomes complete. The old self, the self defined by fear, by desire, and by attachment, falls away, and in its place arises a new self. A self that is aligned with the divine, that is at peace with the world, and that is in tune with the flow of life. This is the true rebirth that fasting offers, the rebirth of the soul into its true, divine nature. Living in alignment with the divine, once the journey of transformation is complete, you are no longer the person you were when you began. You have undergone a spiritual awakening, a rebirth, and now you must walk the world with a new sense of purpose, a new sense of clarity, and a new sense of connection to the divine. This new life is one of balance, of living in harmony with the rhythms of the universe. You no longer seek fulfillment in external things, in food, in possessions, in achievements. You have learned that true fulfillment comes from within. It comes from living in alignment with the soul, with the divine, and with the eternal truths that guide all of existence. Your relationship with the body, the mind, and the world around you is transformed. You no longer see them as separate from you, but as part of the greater whole. You walk with a sense of grace, knowing that you are both a part of the world and yet also beyond it. You are no longer bound by the illusions of the ego, but free to live in accordance with your true nature. Continuing the journey, though the transformation of fasting may seem complete, it is important to understand that the journey does not end with the fast. Fasting is not a one-time event, but a continuing path. A path that calls you to walk with awareness, with humility, and with reverence for the divine presence that resides within you. Each day, each moment, is an opportunity to deepen your connection with the divine, to live more fully in alignment with your true self, and to continue your journey of healing, growth, and spiritual awakening. In a world where every moment is filled with noise, distraction, and the endless demands of modern life, the ancient practice of fasting may seem out of place. How can something so timeless, so rooted in ancient wisdom, be relevant in a time when we are bombarded by information, expectations, and the ceaseless demands of the digital age? The answer lies in the profound truth that fasting is not merely an ancient ritual, but a universal practice, one that transcends time and culture and speaks to the very core of our human experience. In the midst of our modern lives, with our fast-paced routines, constant connectivity, and overwhelming sense of urgency, fasting offers us something invaluable: the space to reconnect with ourselves, to quiet the mind, and to restore balance to our bodies and souls. In this chapter, we will explore how fasting, once a practice of ancient mystics and sages, has been adapted and applied in the context of our contemporary world. We will see how it offers a path not only to physical health, but also to mental clarity and spiritual rejuvenation in a time when both body and soul are in desperate need of restoration. Fasting as a tool for mental clarity in a world of overload. In our modern world, our minds are constantly in motion. The stream of information is endless: emails, text messages, social media updates, news cycles, work demands. The flood of stimuli never ceases. This constant barrage of input can leave us feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, and disconnected from the present moment. We are so accustomed to living in this state of perpetual stimulation that we have forgotten what it feels like to simply be still. Fasting, in this context, offers a profound antidote to mental overload. When we engage in fasting, whether for a day, a week, or longer, we are essentially offering our minds a vacation from the constant demand for attention. The simple act of abstaining from food creates a pause, a moment of stillness that interrupts the cycle of consumption, both physical and mental. This break allows the mind to clear, to rest, and to regain focus. Fasting has been shown to improve mental clarity by reducing mental fog, enhancing cognitive function, and fostering a heightened sense of awareness. In a world that rewards constant output, the act of fasting provides us with a space to reconnect with our inner wisdom. It helps us step back from the noise and distractions, allowing us to listen to our inner voice, to reconnect with our higher purpose, and to gain perspective on the things that truly matter. In this sense, fasting is not just a practice for the body, but for the mind. It invites us to detach from external distractions, to enter a state of deep presence, and to engage with life from a place of clarity and purpose. Fasting as a means of physical healing in a society of excess. One of the most evident modern applications of fasting is in its ability to restore the body. Our contemporary world, while full of advancements in medicine and technology, has also led to a culture of overconsumption. From overeating to the consumption of processed foods, to the overuse of substances that harm our bodies, we are living in an age of excess. And while medical advances have helped mitigate some of these issues, they have not solved the root causes of the growing epidemic of chronic diseases. Fasting in its most basic form is a return to the body's natural rhythms. It offers the digestive system a much-needed rest, allowing it to repair and regenerate. By giving the body time to fast, we allow our cells to activate the natural processes of autophagy, cellular repair and detoxification, which play key roles in reducing inflammation, promoting longevity, and restoring balance to the body's systems. Modern scientific research has confirmed the benefits of fasting for a variety of health conditions. Intermittent fasting, in particular, has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity, reduce blood pressure, enhance heart health, and even protect against neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's. This practice, which involves cycling between periods of eating and fasting, aligns with the body's natural rhythms, supporting overall well-being and offering a powerful tool for preventing illness, rather than simply managing it. In a time when so many are suffering from diseases related to diet and lifestyle, fasting provides a natural, simple, and effective way to restore health to the body. It offers a chance to reclaim control over our health in a world that often feels out of balance. Fasting as a spiritual practice in an age of disconnection, beyond the physical and mental benefits, fasting also offers us a powerful means of reconnecting with the spiritual in a world that often feels disconnected, fragmented, and disenchanted. In a society where the sacred is often overshadowed by the secular, fasting serves as a reminder of our divine nature, of the spiritual currents that flow beneath the surface of everyday life. Fasting has always been viewed as a sacred act in many spiritual traditions. In the Christian faith, it is a way of aligning oneself with the divine, of purifying the soul and opening the heart to God. In the Islamic tradition, fasting during Ramadan is seen as a time for spiritual reflection, repentance, and connection with Allah. In the Jewish tradition, fasting is a way to atone for sins and return to the divine presence. And in the ancient mystery schools, fasting was a rite of initiation, a way to prepare the body and mind for divine knowledge. In today's fast-paced world, fasting offers a way to slow down and reorient ourselves towards the divine. It invites us to step away from the noise and the distractions, to reconnect with the sacred, and to rediscover our relationship with the divine source. It is an opportunity to purify the soul, to open ourselves to higher wisdom, and to align with the divine flow that sustains all of creation. Spiritual fasting in the modern world does not require the same extreme measures as in ancient times, but it does require a willingness to sacrifice and to let go of worldly attachments. It asks us to surrender, to quiet the mind, and to open the heart to the divine presence. Whether practiced through intermittent fasting, extended fasts, or simply moments of silence and contemplation, fasting remains a sacred practice that reconnects us to the spiritual realms, offering healing, guidance, and transformation. Fasting as a form of self-care and self-love. Finally, in a world where self-care has become a buzzword, fasting offers a profound form of self-love. Fasting is not just about self-discipline or detoxing. It is about giving the body, mind, and spirit the space to heal. It is a way of honoring the wisdom and resilience of the body and recognizing the sacred nature of the soul. Fasting, when done with intention, is a way to say to oneself, I care enough about my health, my well-being, and my soul to take the time to heal, to reset, and to reconnect. It is a sacred act of nurturing, a practice that prioritizes your body's needs, your mind's clarity, and your soul's growth. In the business of modern life, fasting reminds us that we are not machines. We are living, breathing beings who need rest, nourishment, and time to reflect. By integrating fasting into our lives, in whatever form it takes, we offer ourselves the gift of healing, clarity, and renewal. As we arrive at the end of this journey, we come full circle, back to the place where we began but forever changed. The path of fasting has been a sacred and transformative one, a journey through darkness and light, through self-discovery and spiritual awakening. We have explored its ancient roots, its metaphysical significance, and its profound impact on the body, mind, and soul. We have uncovered the mysteries that have been hidden for centuries, and we have revealed how fasting, in its truest essence, is a sacred tool for healing, purification, and spiritual renewal. But as with all sacred journeys, the end is but the beginning. The practice of fasting, like all spiritual practices, is a cycle, a circle that repeats itself, inviting us to return again and again to the stillness, to the emptiness, to the sacred space within. In fasting, we discover not a single truth, but a path, a rhythm that aligns us with the divine flow of life. Fasting as a continuous journey, the journey of fasting is not one that has a definitive end. It is a path that calls us to return, again and again, to the sacred space of silence, purification, and surrender. Every time we fast, whether for a day, a week, or longer, we are renewed, reconnected, and rejuvenated. We shed old layers of attachment, fear, and illusion, and we rise once again to our highest selves, to our true, divine nature. In many spiritual traditions, the concept of the circle is sacred. It symbolizes wholeness, unity, and the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The circle has no beginning and no end. It is continuous, flowing, and ever evolving. Fasting is like this circle. Each fast we undertake is a return to the source, a return to the divine wellspring from which we all came. Each time we engage in fasting, we step back into the flow of life, and we are reminded of our connection to the eternal. The cycle of fasting invites us to go deeper, to shed more layers, to heal more wounds, and to expand more fully into our divine selves. It is a practice that deepens over time, revealing new insights, new levels of healing, and new dimensions of spiritual awareness. The more we engage with fasting, the more we come to understand its true power, and the more we realize that it is not simply a tool for detoxification, but a sacred practice that connects us to the divine flow of life itself. A life of alignment. As we close this chapter on fasting, it is important to remember that the true fruits of this sacred practice lie not in the physical benefits alone, but in the spiritual fruits that arise from it. When we fast, we are not just cleansing the body, we are also aligning with the divine. We are reconnecting with the sacred energies that flow through all life, and we are remembering our true nature as divine beings, connected to all that is. The spiritual fruits of fasting are many. Inner peace, mental clarity, heightened intuition, and deepened compassion are just a few of the gifts that arise from fasting. As we purify the body and mind, we become more attuned to the soul, to the inner wisdom that guides us, and to the divine presence that resides within us all. We begin to see the world not through the lens of the ego, but through the eyes of the soul. We live more in alignment with our highest purpose, and we become vessels of divine light, love, and healing for others. The fruits of fasting also extend to our relationships with the world around us. When we purify ourselves, we create space for others to heal as well. As we align with the divine, we bring more love, peace, and understanding into our interactions with others. We begin to see the interconnectedness of all things, the sacredness of life, the unity of the universe, and the divine spark that resides within every living being. Fasting as a sacred offering at its core. Fasting is an offering, a gift we give to ourselves, to the divine, and to the world. It is an act of devotion, a way of showing gratitude for the precious gift of life. In fasting, we offer up our attachments, our desires, and our ego to the divine, surrendering them in exchange for healing, wisdom, and spiritual renewal. This offering is not about sacrifice, but about remembrance. Remembrance of the divine source from which we came, and remembrance of our divine nature. Fasting is an act of surrender, yes, but it is also an act of empowerment. Through fasting, we reclaim our spiritual power, we reconnect with our true selves, and we remember that we are not separate from the divine, but a part of it. Fasting, in its highest form, is an act of love, love for the self, love for others, and love for the divine. It is a way of honoring the sacredness of life, of showing reverence for the body and soul, and of recognizing the divinity within all things. By fasting, we align ourselves with the flow of the universe, with the rhythms of the earth, and with the eternal dance of creation. Walking the path of fasting. As you reflect on this journey, know that the path of fasting is an invitation, an invitation to return to the source, to heal, to transform, and to awaken. It is a path that is always available to you, a path that invites you to step into your highest self, to walk with grace, to live in alignment with the divine, and to bring light and healing to the world. Fasting is not a destination, but a journey that you can begin at any time, and that will continue with you for the rest of your life. It is a sacred practice that will always offer new insights, new revelations, and new levels of growth and transformation. As you walk the path of fasting, remember that it is not about achieving perfection, but about deepening your connection to the divine, to yourself, and to the world. The journey continues, and you are invited to walk it with an open heart, with a soul ready for transformation, and with a spirit eager to return to the source.